our English literature class. I trust that your morning is going well so far. So I'm standing in front of the class and I have a bag in my hand. And this bag is full of surprises. Now, the first thing I would like for you to do is to place yourselves into groups of 4, and each group will be asked to take one item from this bag, okay? All right, so each group would have taken one item from the bag. And now that you have that item in your possession, what I would like for you to do is to look at that item carefully, and you should see a tag on the item that describes a specific aspect of the item. So you might see taste, and you might see texture, and you might see sound or smell, right? So what I would like for each group to do is to sit as a group and brainstorm, think about it, and write one sentence that describes the aspect of the item that you were given. Okay, so I'm distributing a blank sheet of paper to each group, and you write that sentence on this sheet of paper. Each group would have placed their responses on the board. On their side, we have a cup. It is cylindrical in shape and has a green color. Sound, keys, they make a jingling sound. Smell, perfume, has a sweet scent or fragrance. Taste, banana, it has a sweet taste. Texture, toilet paper, it is soft and smooth. All right, so we just looked at those sentences, and now I want you to tell me, what sense organ did you use to determine the sight, sound, smell, taste, and texture of the items that you were given? All right, so can I have somebody? Philip, what sense organ did you use to determine the sight? Eyes. All right, that's correct. Alicia? So Alicia is telling us that the sense organ that she used to determine the sound of the object was her ear. Okay, absolutely correct. Now tell us about the sense organ that you use to determine the taste of things. We eat so many lovely foods and we have nice beverages. So what sense organ do we use? All right, Lambert. Lambert is telling us that we use our tongue. That's correct. And we have 2 more. Yes, what sense organ do you use to experience the texture of things? Your hands. Okay, so somebody's telling me that Jonathan, you're saying that it's the skin. The skin is the sense organ. All right, that's correct. And last but not least, how do we get to smell things? What sense organ do we use? Rashad, our nose. So those responses are absolutely correct. Okay, so I have a few sense organs here. I have my nose, I have my eyes, and so on. Now I'd like to direct your attention to this chart. Now we have words such as olfactory, auditory, visual, textile, and gustatory. What I would like for you to do for me is to step forward. I would like 5 volunteers to step forward, and you will take these sense organs and place them under the respective headings. So can I have 5 volunteers, please? Okay, so our volunteers step forward, and let's take a look at the board. So under olfactory, we have the tongue, and I can tell you, looking at this has been incorrectly placed, but we'll return to that. We have auditory. Now, when we think about auditory, listen to the word auditory. What comes to mind? Yes, Felicia. You think about audio, and when you hear the word audio, what comes to mind? Brian? You think about music. Okay, so how do we get to experience the sound of music? By using our ear. Very good. So the next one that we're looking at is visual, and we have our eyes. This is correct. Textile, we have to touch things to know what they feel like, and this is correct. And we have gustatory, and under gustatory we have our nose. So this has also been incorrectly placed. Now if this is incorrectly placed and that is incorrectly placed, what should we do? Yes, Sarah? Okay, so Sarah is telling us that we should remove the nose, remove the tongue, and we should swap them. So I'll place this over here and that over there. All right, class, what do you think about this? Is this correct? Yes, it is. So thank you, Sarah. So when we hear the word olfactory, it refers to things that we can smell, auditory, things that we can hear, visual, things that we can see, textiles, things that we can touch, and gustatory, the things that we can taste. Take a minute. Look at this chart on my right. Look at this chart on my left. Do you notice any similarities between the two? Yes, Peter. It's the same thing. So when you see these words, don't be confused. They're complex words, but they're words that tell us things that we already know. All right, so I would like for 5 new volunteers to step forward, and I want you to take the responses that you have over here, the sentences, and place them on our new chart. So can you come forward for me, please? All right, thank you, volunteers. All of the sentences are correctly placed. So let's move on to our second activity. So we're looking at the word imagery on the board. And up to this point, we have not discussed imagery. Now, think about everything that we've done up to this point. Look at the sentences, look at the sense organs, and I want you to take a minute to think about imagery. Ask yourself this question: what is imagery? After you would have taken that minute to think about it, I want you to turn to a friend next to you and share your definition of imagery with them. And then when you're finished, they will share their definition of imagery with you. Are we following? And when we're all finished, then I will choose you randomly. And when I call on you, I want you to share the responses that you would have discussed. Okay? All right, thank you, Ashley, for that definition. So Ashley shared with us that she thinks that imagery is the use of our senses to describe things. Now that's a good definition. It's a workable definition. Now, imagery can be used in different ways. And we have the types of imagery. We have figurative imagery and we have literal imagery. Now let's examine what they both are. So figurative imagery uses words in some way other than its literal meaning to appeal to our senses. And we have literal imagery, and it uses descriptive words with dictionary meanings to appeal to our senses. So let's assume for a minute or pretend that I am walking down the road with my mother and I see my friend Joshua eating food from a garbage bin. If I turn to my mother and I say, "Mommy, Joshua lost his marbles," what do you think I'm trying to say? And when you're thinking about it, ask yourself, am I trying to say it in a literal way? So when I say that he lost his marbles, do I mean that he's in that trash bin looking for marbles? Or am I trying to say something else? Yes, Peter? So when I said lost his marbles, you think that I'm trying to say that he is going crazy. And that's true. So that is the use of figurative imagery to basically describe what I'm trying to say. You know, I'm trying to say that he is not really right in the head, or he may be going crazy. So we can use language in such a way. In a literal way, I can say that he is crazy, or I can say that he has lost his marbles. Okay? Okay, students, so we're about to play a game. And if you take a look at the board, we have our image devices. Now, these devices, they're familiar to us because we looked at them a few weeks ago. Personification, metaphor, simile, and onomatopoeia. These specific devices, they help to paint pictures in our minds, right? And then we have a few examples on this side. And the first one is, you think I like this stupidness, burning myself out like cane fire to frighten the foolish. Red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow. There were no dreams of saxophones, but just the clatter of bones. It is the festival of guns, the carnival of mystery. Now I would like 4 persons, 4 new volunteers, to come forward and match the image devices to the examples. All right, thank you for coming forward. Now let's look at the first one. Personification, and Sarah matched red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow. What do you think about that? Yes, that's correct. The second one, Jonathan, there were no dreams of saxophones, but just the clatter of their bones. What do we think about this? Is this correct? Josiah is saying no. So why isn't this correct? Because we know that a metaphor compares 2 things without the use of like or as. It says that this thing is another. And do we see that happening here? No, we do not. So we return to this. Simile, you think I like this stupidness? Burning myself out like cane fire. This is correct. And over here we have onomatopoeia, and I believe it was Gansham who did this. And he says that it is the festival of guns, the carnival of misery. So this is incorrect, and this is also incorrect. Now, what is the correct selection class? Where do we need to match it correctly? So the metaphor is actually here. Let's match it. And onomatopoeia is here. Now, could someone tell me why this is an example of onomatopoeia and why this is the metaphor? Yes, that's correct. All right, so I know that many of you may be sitting wondering, Miss, why I got to learn about figurative devices? Why can't I just say what I want to say? If something is nice, I say it's nice. If I enjoyed something, why can't I just say that? Why do I have to think about figurative imagery? Now, we will examine why figurative imagery is important. Let's just assume for a minute that you have visited the seawall on multiple occasions, but your grandmother, she has never been to the seawall. So you visit your granny, and because she heard or she knows that you would have been to the seawall, she turns to you and she says, "Oh, grandchild, oh, it's a long time you ain't come and see your grandmother. Come and tell me something about this beach. I want to know what this beach is like." What would you turn and tell your grandmother? Yes, Peter? So you would tell your grandmother that the beach is nice. Okay, so we'll write that down. So Peter will say, the beach is nice. All right. Does anybody else have a different response? Felicia. So Felicia is saying that she would tell Granny, the beach is beautiful. All right. So thank you for those responses. Now let's look at these words. We have nice, we have beautiful. Now these words, don't get me wrong, they're nice words, they're good words. However, are they words that paint a picture in your mind? Now, suppose when you said the beach is nice, your definition of nice is an overcast day that is cool. But your grandmother's definition of nice is a hot, sunny day. Do you see how you're not giving Granny enough information for her to fully understand what you mean by the word nice? All right, so we'll try something. Instead of just saying nice and beautiful, how about we enhance those descriptions with the use of figurative imagery? Okay, so look at this sentence. Can we read it together, please? The sun was a shining ball in the sky. Now, let's place this on the board. And let me show you what is happening in Grandma's mind. Look at what happens when we say that. The sun was a shining ball in the sky. Look at that. And how about saying the clouds looks like white cotton candy? Let's place it on the board also. We'll place it over here. We're still looking at Grandma's mind. And this is what happens when you provide such a descriptive yet figurative description. And we have here the tall palm trees dance in the wind. I'll put it on this side. We're still trying to focus on her mind, and this is what's going on there. All of a sudden, those tall palm trees, they're there. And last but not least, if we say the waves of the ocean crashed against the shore. Let me put it on this side. And now, do we see what's happening here? When we said that the beach is nice, we weren't giving Grandma this picture in her mind. But now that we use descriptive language, in Grandma's mind, in the eye of her mind, she can literally close her eyes and she can see this scene being painted in her mind. Now let's look at the literal. All right, so let's examine the figurative devices that were used in this description. So we have this one. The sun was a shining ball in the sky. Randy, device. All right, so this is a metaphor. Very good. The clouds look like white cotton candy. Sarah, this is a simile. Nice. The tall palm trees dance in the wind. Ricardo, what do you think about this one? So this is an example of personification, because we know that trees don't actually dance. And the last one here, the waves of the ocean crashed against the shore. What device are we using here? We are using onomatopoeia. All right, very nice. And what word in this example tells us that it's onomatopoeia? The word crashed. That's correct. So we have crashed there. So great job, guys.
So students, we would have learned a lot about imagery today. Ms. Gerard would have taught you so much. You would have learned about what imagery is. You would have learned that there are two types of imagery, figurative imagery and literal imagery. You would have also learned about the importance of imagery and how imagery helps to create pictures in our mind. Now what we'll do this afternoon is we will take all of the information that has been given to you thus far and we will apply it to a particular poem which is entitled Dulce et Decorum Est. So the first thing I would like to do is I will give each of you a copy of this poem. So take the copy, you can start looking at it, and after I will read the poem for you, all right? Great, now that each of you has a copy of the poem, I will read it for you. The poem is entitled Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. It goes like this. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim, through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smoldering dreams, you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil's sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of oil, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. Now that you've heard this poem read to you, I'm sure you are developing an image of what is taking place in this poem in your mind, aren't you? Yes, very good. So to better help you with that, here is what we'll do. I would like for each of you to place yourself into groups of 5. So we would like to have 4 groups of 5s. The poem has 4 stanzas. That's why I'm putting you into 4 groups. So each group will come up when I indicate to you, and you will mime the poem. And by miming, I mean you will go through the actions that these soldiers are performing during the poem. All right? So get yourselves into group and prepare yourself. Great. You know what? I'm surprised by how well you all mimed that poem. So I must say good job to all of the groups. And now that we would have read the poem, and that created a little visual of the scenery in our mind, then now you would have mimed the poem, I'm sure you would have gotten a better picture of what was taking place as you read the poem. The scenery became real to you in your mind, didn't it? Yes, I see Javon saying that's what happened to him. Good. And that's what imagery does, all right? So class, now that you would have read the poem and you would have mimed it and you have a picture in your mind about what this poem may be about, let me ask you, what do you think this poem is about? Yes, Brian, let me hear you. You think it's talking about the Guyana police force? Well, Brian, that is not correct, but you know what? I want to thank you for trying. Good work, Brian. Javon, let me hear from you. You think it's talking about men at war? Well, Javon, that is red hot, and that is correct. All right, let's give Javon a nice hand, class. Very good. So now that we would have done that activity, here is what I would like for you to do. But you must pay attention first as I work this example on the board before I give you the instruction. So if you look on the board, I have an extract from the poem Dulce et Decorum Est. And what you will be doing is exactly what I will work on the board for you. So now you see I have this extract from the poem. Here's what you'll do. You will look at the poem line by line, and you will see for the device, the figurative device that is present in every poem, in every line of the poem, pardon me, and then you look for the sense that it affects, all right? So let's look here at Dulce et Decorum as the first line. It says, bent double like old beggars under sacks. So which device is used in this first line of Dulce et Decorum Est? Yes, Janice. A simile? Yes, you are correct. It is a simile that is being used. And we know that it's a simile because we see that two things are being compared with the use of the word like. And so here we see that the soldiers are being compared to beggar. So our device is a simile. Correct. Now that we know which device was used, which sense does this device affect? Yes, George. You think it's your sense of hearing? Well, thank you for responding, but that's not quite correct. Remember, bend double like old beggars on their sacks. When you read that line, what happened? Yes, you started to imagine these soldiers, how they were walking, they were bent over, looking like old beggars and so on, right? And so that affected our visual sense or sense of sight, right? So good. So the sense that it affected was our visual sense. Good. So now that you see me, now that you've seen me work this example on the board, here's what I would like for you to do. On this poem worksheet, you're going to go through the poem, Dolce et Decorum Est, line by line, and class, you will look for the device that is present in the poem, and then you will look for the sense that is present, the sense that the device affects in the poem, and you will write them on the side just like you would have seen me do, all right? So you have 5 minutes to work this. Go ahead. What we will be doing next is we will be writing a 30 words paragraph on the effect of imagery in the poem Dolce et Decorum Est. So I know some of you might be a little bit nervous or you might be a little bit apprehensive about writing this paragraph because you might say, sir, I'm not sure how to go about doing it. Well, we thought about that, and so we prepared something to help you. And all you will need to do, students, is to follow these steps or these guidelines on our chart, and it will help you to be able to write your 30 words paragraph. So the first step to writing your paragraph is that you will identify lines in the poem that contain examples of imagery. The next step you'll take is that you will state what figurative device is used to create imagery in the poem, and then thirdly, you will explain how imagery helped you to understand the meaning of the selected lines, all right? So once you follow those steps, you should be able to write your 30 words paragraph. So why don't you go ahead and start working on that? You have 15 minutes to complete it.
Okay, students, so I will provide each of you with a footprint template and cardboard and some markers and scissors, and I just want you to trace the outline of the template, cut out the outline of the footprint, and then you will write one thing that you learned from this lesson. Anything about this lesson that stuck with you, I want you to write it on this footprint. And as you leave this classroom, you will take this footprint with you wherever you go. So when you go home and your mother asks you, why you didn't school today? You can say, oh, I learned about imagery, and you can tell her something about imagery, okay?
So now that we're coming down to the end of our class session, we would like to see what we would have learned about imagery. And so Ms. Gerard would have asked you to create the footprint template, and I would have collected a few responses, and I have it up here on the board just for us to see what a few persons will be walking away with from this lesson. All right? So let's look at Joshua. Joshua says what he's walked away with is the fact that imagery needs figures of speech like simile to appeal to our senses. So class, do you agree with that? Yes, that is so correct. You did a good job, Joshua, and I really hope you'll take that response with you when you leave indeed. Let's look at another one. Tracy said, imagery helps to deepen our understanding about what is going on in a story or poem. Is that correct? Yes, that is also correct, class. Wonderful job, Tracy. Now let's see what Johnny has. Johnny stated, oh boy, Johnny stated what he will be walking away with from class is that toilet paper is soft and smooth. Johnny, listen, see us before you leave class today, because we don't believe that you quite grasp what we wanted you to grasp about imagery. All right, so see us before you walk out of these doors, Johnny. And then as we go and look finally at James, James said that imagery can either be literal or figurative. And that is also correct. Let's give James a nice hand. Well done, James. And so class, overall, I believe we would have achieved our objective of what we set out to learn about imagery. So do remember, when you walk out of these doors today, take with you what you would have learned about the topic of imagery. All right? Y'all take care and have a good day.